adjusting the settings box. You can chat questions to me during the entire session. We'll go about 30 minutes or so, and I always try and stay on at the end in case there's any extra questions I didn't cover during the session. We're trying to make these a little more flexible, a little more fluid, getting some feedback from you guys. So this is going to be somewhat informal, but I'm going to kind of walk you through today a demo of using PowerPoint. It's often a starting point for a lot of our users. For some of you, you're very comfortable with it. You've done it before. And for some of you, it's very foreign. And then there's some of you where it's a train wreck, right? No, it's just frustrating. You could take away from a really great presentation. So we're going to use today as an opportunity for me to kind of show you what I've done through the years and hopefully give you a few tricks, tips, pointers, and strategies on how to better use PowerPoint. So again, to get started, if you're with us live on this training Wednesday, top right-hand corner, you can adjust your settings for your microphone and webcam. You do not have to use either of those. You can chat questions away, and I'll do my best to answer those as we're going. I will be sharing my screen, so I won't see questions probably until I pop back out. So just hang in there with me, and I'll make sure and hop out early enough before we're closed out to go ahead and do that. So with that, I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to dive right in and share my screen with you. Now, since you're all presenter box users, what I'm doing on the inside of my system is I'm clicking on desktop, start sharing. I'm going to share the full screen. Obviously, all you got to do is you're an attendee. You just sit back and relax and enjoy. So I'm going to hop out now, and I'm going to go ahead and open up my PowerPoint. Now I'm going to start with a clean, fresh slide because in case this is new to you, I want to make sure that you'll kind of know where to start from the very beginning, because sometimes a blank slate can be harder than anything. One of the ideas that we're going to work on is actually starting to work on creating some templates. But for now, you're starting with a clean slate. So what do you do? So there's really 5 or 6 things I want to cover with you, and the first is talking about these backgrounds. So when you open up PowerPoint, depending on what your settings are, typically you'll have these boxes already set in here. And my recommendation is get rid of anything that's already in there. That way you're starting with a truly fresh slate. This will also help you avoid any pain later. I also recommend using this view when you're setting up. There's different views that you can do. If you want to have kind of the layout of the slides, or you want to see the notes view or the reading view or all of these. And frankly, I don't even know how to get out of some of these. So I'm going to go back to end show. I go to what's called the normal view. I guess that's kind of boring, but I find it to be the most helpful. I don't use much of the notes down here. Very, very rarely. The only time I will use these are not necessarily for notes, but I'll put, maybe I want to use the a note about a picture. Oh, I want to use the sunset picture here, or the video I'm going to use is that intro video. So that's more when I'm laying things out, but for the most part, I don't even put anything down in the notes area. We're just working up in this blank slate. And so I'll put together today, depending on how much time we have and how creative I'm feeling, 2 or 3 slides so you can see how things will move around. So, so the first thing I want to show you is how to add a text box. And again, I'm going to cover some of the really, really rudimentary, basic 101 stuff. And I'm also going to cover some things that are a little bit more advanced and helpful for you. So all you have to do is start at the top here, go up to Insert, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Text Box. And all you got to do is somewhere inside of this slide. So when you're updating and editing PowerPoint, you're always working within the main slide area, not over on this left side. So you can draw the box as big as you want. It really doesn't matter because it's going to snap back down to a minimal size. And then you can start typing your text there. So I'm just going to put PowerPoint slide 1. Now, a couple of things you can do. Obviously, just like this is a similar canvas, if you will, as to working in, let's say, Microsoft Word, right? So a lot of the functionality you're going to see up in your formatting toolbar is identical to what you have when you open up Word. So you can do a Word document. Guess what? You can now do PowerPoint. A lot of people don't realize that, so they never get started. So I can come in here and I can change my font, and I have my favorites, and you'll do yours. One of the interesting things when we talk about fonts is I got feedback real early on from somebody, and a woman, and she said, your fonts are very masculine, so find a font that's smoother and softer. So you'll actually find yourself doing different fonts over the course of the years, and different types of things, but pay attention to the type of font you're using. You don't always have to use Times New Roman. Be a little more creative. Don't get too wild and crazy. Sometimes people all of a sudden they get in PowerPoint and they think they're a designer, or they think they're getting a little too wild. They start using stuff like this. So keep it professional, keep it clean, keep it readable, but don't be afraid to try something a little different. Century Gothic is one of my favorites. I'm not sure why. It just happened to be one that I've been using over the last year or so. So just like just like Word, I can come in, I can change my color, I can bold it, I can italicize it, whatever I want to do. But just for the sake today, I'm going to go ahead and just keep it very simple. So that's my main slide. If you want to add more text, then you just go right back up, insert text box, draw your box. And let's say now I have bullet points. Now I don't recommend bullet points, but let's just use this for the sake of an example. So this is going to be my point number 1, point number 2, and point number 3. And I did almost all those different. So again, just like using Microsoft Word. So I'll go back in and I'll say, all right, I want to make this 28 point and do that there. So this is what it looks like. This is all you got to do. And the beauty in a PowerPoint slide is now I can move this stuff wherever I want, because we're going to add some images here shortly as well. So one of the things that you need to also be aware of is that with PowerPoint, the spell check will work as long as you're not using all caps. So again, that's much like Word, that you've got to be really careful about that. And I've made that mistake before. So just be aware that spell check is not always working. And in the older series, like 2000 and earlier versions, I don't believe that they had it working at all. So just something to be aware of, that if you're going in there and you're doing a lot of different types of like headers, or for whatever reason you're using lots of caps, just be really careful. It's a mistake I've made before. Also keep in mind, one of my pet peeves are bullet points, and I don't think you need bullet points in most cases. If you're doing technical training or a lot of heavy content, then that's okay. But if you want to get rid of bullet points, you can still use them just like this, and I'm going to show you in a moment how you can start playing around with animations and that sort of thing. But for now, let's just I like step 1 is get my content up on the screen. And usually what I try and do, my template is a header, right? So something that's 1 or 2, maybe 3 words that tells the audience, hey, this is what this slide's all about, guys, right? The second thing I do is I try and have no more than 2 to 3 words or short phrases on that slide, right? So just like I have here, and then I have an image. And just like in a Word document, to insert an image, you just go to Picture, and you can go to your file and do whatever you'd like. So one of the things that I do, and I'll just give you an example here, what it does. I keep a library of images, and I encourage you to do that. You can see these are all images I've used in PowerPoints through the years. I literally have hundreds of them in here. And you never know when you'll go back and use them again, especially if you teach or train on the same topic a lot. This can be really helpful. You'll also go back and see how bad some of the stuff was that you once used. So some of these are literally from my very early webinars, right, and videos or just PowerPoint presentations that I did live. So it doesn't really matter what image it is, but this one of the things, I have a little folder you can see here called Presentation Pics, and that's what I use to keep everything up there. So let's just say for fun, I'm going to use this image here. And so when I click it, it's going to pull in the image based on its actual size. Okay? So this nice thing is once it's in there, again, everything's drag and drop, right? The old WYSIWYG, right? What you see is what you get. So now I can change the size, and I can move it all around so it looks just right. So even if you're not a graphic designer, even if you're, design challenged, you can make a slide that looks pretty good. So what I would do on this one here maybe is I'd come in here and I'd probably add a little space between these two things. So I have my three points off to the side. I've got a nice image, and that is a nice looking slide. Again, we're being very simplistic right now, but you get the point. Some people like to brand all of their slides. I think that's up to you. One of the limitations of doing that is what you can do with the backgrounds, which we'll talk about in just a moment when I do the next one. But let's say you wanted to add in your logo, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put insert. And now I'm going to go up to my presenter box here. I'm going to go find my logos. Again, this would just be, whatever you have and whatever you want to put in. So I'm going to grab one of my logos here. Now, again, huge, huge logo. I'm going to shrink this puppy down. And then typically, kind of the standard rule of thumb is that if you want to brand it, keep your logo in the bottom right-hand corner. And this is really a nice thing to do, particularly for those of you that want to do automated webinars with us. It's a really nice branding tool. Or if you're recording these as videos we're going to host for you, again, you've got your branding in front of them at all times. The key is keep it clean. Keep it clean. If you look or you read or you consult with any type of designer, and this is from painful experience, I always wanted to put tons and tons of information, right? So, gosh, this is great, but what if we put like 6 points up here, right? Now all of a sudden I got 3 more over here, and then I want to do something down here, and I got stuff all over the place, and it becomes so jumbled up, and the audience can't follow that. I think Apple in their advertising is such a great example of clean, classic design. And from a PowerPoint standpoint, that's all you want. Because if they're watching your PowerPoint, it's kind of like business cards, right? If you do business cards that have too much junk on them, they're worthless, right? Because you remember that business cards typically, you're handing them to somebody, right? You've already established a relationship, so there's no need to jumble every single thing you do onto a business card. It's really meant to be contact information. Well, guess what? A PowerPoint slide is just meant to be a guide. It's a reference. In some cases, it's entertainment. So we don't have to put everything up on that slide, nor do we need a slide for every single point we're going to make. And that's where people kind of go a little bit sideways. And I did for a long time. I always overdid content. And what I've learned through the years is less is more. And I'll show you another style of slide that I really like to do. And for those of you that have seen my PowerPoints, I hope you feel that I'm practicing what I preach. I really try and follow this rule of thumb. So there's a bazillion ways to do this. I'm just sharing with you my style and philosophy, which is header at the top, and I'm going to center this up just by stretching this out from side to side, just to make sure I'm right in the middle. So header at the top, image on the left, 2 to 3 phrases that are short or words on the right-hand side. And then you can mix it up right on. So on the next slide, one of the ways, now that you've got your slide laid out, what I do all the time to save me a lot of time is you can go over and I'm going to right click and copy, or you can do Control V. And then I'm going to come over here and just paste it. And you want to paste it with this little paintbrush because that keeps the formatting, right? So it's not going to default back, because if I just click new slide, look at this, I'm right back where I started from. But because I pasted, these are exactly identical, right? I pasted with formatting. Now let's say on this slide, I want to get wild and crazy. So I'm going to pick this up. Now I'm going to move my content over here. I'm going to erase this, and I'm going to insert a different picture. So I'm going to go back to my presentation pics. And let's just pick, let's see what kind of picture we got in here. Oh, it doesn't really matter, but let's just pick this one. It's nice and colorful, right? Same thing, I'm going to scrunch this sucker down. You can play around with different sizes, whatever you feel comfortable with. Again, less is more. White space is your friend. I'm going to change the title list because now I'm on slide 2. Boom, I'm done, right? I'm going to update my content over here. So maybe now this is point 4, point 5, and point 6 from my outline. So do you see how fast you can start duplicating? Once you have that basic template down that you like, My logo's already in here. I already have my font types and styles. All I've got to do now is go in and update the copy on all of these, and it goes much, much faster. So these are ways that you can now start adjusting the way it looks. One other way that we can do it is, so I'm going to go ahead and just create a new slide. Okay, so again, over on this left-hand column is your slide control. So if I want to change the order, I can literally just drag and drop them. But I'm going to keep the order. Got a brand new slide, so I'm back to basics. Okay, let's say on slide 3, I'm going to tell a story. Okay? And one of the ways I like to do story slides is I fill the entire background with an image. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to right-click onto the slide, anywhere in the slide, and then you're going to go to Format Background. And then in here, you can get wild and crazy, okay? I want you to be careful because you can also make this thing a train wreck. So keep it simple. So what we want to do is go under the fill, and we're going to go down to picture or text fill. And when you click that, it'll default to whatever is in your system. In my case, it's this texture background. Don't worry about it because we're not worried about what that is, because we're worried about what file we're going to grab, right? So again, I'm going to go back and do that again. Right click, I'm going to click on fill, and then I'm going to go to the pattern. So what we're doing is we're picking the fill, we're picking the background that's going to be on this image. So let's say I'm going to tell one of my surf stories, right? So let's find a good, well actually here's one. I posted this the other day. Put this up here. Now, I don't know how it's going to fit, so this is a great example. So I just put this in here. Now, what will happen sometimes is the picture won't format just how you want it, okay? But you can see how it fills the whole thing. So let me show you another way to do it. I'm going to do another one right here. And the other way to fill your background is just to insert a picture and then stretch it, right? So let's say I want to do that same thing. And where is that picture at? He's in the top here. One of my favorite dudes of all time. All right, so now you can tell the picture that way, or what I do sometimes is I kind of fake it a little bit, right? I'm going to stretch it out, right? And then I can tell the story that way. I could even stretch it this way, but you got to be careful there's font so it doesn't look too funny. But in this case, you can't really tell too much. I don't think too many people would know that that got stretched out. Okay, so when I go to my full view, it actually looks pretty good. That makes for a great story background. If I were to, another way I can do this is I can right click on the format background and go to my solid fill and get black. So if I wanted against a black background, something that looks a little cleaner, I could even do something like this. If I want to get real artistic, I can put it up in the corner. I could add some text down below here, right? So I'm going to go back to one of my other slides. Let's say I want to grab this here. Let's say I still want a title. So I'm just going to copy and paste. And there it is there. Okay. And so what I got to make sure I do now, though, since that is black, is that I've got to update all of the color. Let me do that one more time. So I'm going to do this, copy. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to paste. And then I'm going to highlight it and then turn that text white. Right. Then I can come down here and change this to slide 3, and boom, you can see how fast this can start going. So lots of different ways to do this. This isn't the prettiest thing, but you're getting the idea of what you can do with some of these backgrounds. Another way to use backgrounds is if I clicked new slide, and let's say you have a really powerful quote or phrase, right? Just use a blank background. So pull in that same font style. So I'm going to copy, I'm going to paste, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put, this is my best quote ever. Brian Shaw. Right. Hopefully you're not quoting me in your presentations, but you get the idea. And then you can adjust the size of all your stuff and where it's positioned. Okay, so this is a fun way to really get your audience's attention, to show a statistic. But this can be a really powerful tool, and typically I'll make the author's name much smaller, which in this case is me, and that's a good thing. Right? So I'm going to go back and just make sure everything's formatted properly, and then we're all set. Right? So you can see how that really stands out. So when I click this little bottom right-hand thing, the slideshow, that's what shows me a preview of what that slide will look like. It's a pretty cool looking, clean slide. If you're more of a black background kind of person, you can change this to white. Right-click on background, solid fill, go and make that black, and boom, now I've got a completely different looking slide. Okay? So you can see there's a lot of different things we can do just by playing around with these things a little bit. I want to show you one last thing, which is how to play with animation within the slide. So for example, going back to slide number 2, so I just go up and click on it here in my column. And let's say that, when I open this up right now, it's what we call static, which means that everything is up and showing. What's important to know as a presenter box user is if you share your PowerPoint inside of your room, okay? In other words, if you use the presentation function, this is how it will come out because it has to be converted into a different format. However, if you share your screen like I'm doing now, and that's what I do in a lot of my webinars, then you can have some functionality, right? We can have transitions between slides, and we can have what we call animation. Be careful with animation. This is where you've been in those webinars where people got words bouncing all over and spinning, and you got car crashes and bombs going off with words. Just keep it clean, keep it simple. Okay, so all you've got to do now, so let's say instead of having a slide where when I go to it, it shows all my points, and I want to cover them one at a time, right? So you've seen those come in and fade in. All you do is highlight either the box or highlight all of the text that you want to animate. Click on animations, and then you can choose a whole list of stuff, right? You can make them do any of these things. And again, please don't get too wild and crazy. I know it gets fun and you start goofing around. You're like, oh, look at all this fun stuff, right? And you start saying, oh, if I split it, it does this. And ooh, look at these pretty shapes and that sort of thing. I'm more of an appear or a fade kind of guy, and that's about it. But again, do whatever works for you and your audience. But let's say I want all 3 of these to fade in one at a time. So I click the fade, right, which is my function, but you can see these little ones. This is the order in which they're going. So the most helpful tool you'll have is up in animations here. Click on animation pane. And on the right-hand side, I can now see how these items are coming in. So one of the cool things I can do is I can highlight these, click down, and I can say how I want them to come in. So right now it says start with previous. In other words, when the first one comes out, they all come out. Well, I want them to start on a click. And now you can see it's 1, 2, 3. So when I come back out to my slide, none of them are showing. I click 1, click twice, and I click 3 times. And when I hit my next click, I'm going to my next slide. All right? So that is how you can use animation to bring in. There's a lot of other advanced things. Maybe we'll cover those in a future one if this has been helpful for you guys. But that's how you can bring it in or even take it out of your slide as well. Okay, so there's some fun stuff there. Last thing is the transitions. This is how you move from slide to slide, and I get a lot of comments about the type of transitions that I use. It's really funny because I was very simple like this for a long time, but you can do some pretty cool stuff. So animations are simply how the different panes are going to be moving transitions from side to side. So this is how your slide will appear, right? And the same as animations, there's a whole bunch of them. One of my favorite, you can do, it's got literally everything. Again, I'm going to re-emphasize my rule of keep it simple, keep it clean. So most people like to do a fade, or they like to do a cut, or this is a popular one, uncover. Think about your TV shows and things like that. My favorite that I've been using is Cube. And then what you can do is pick whatever one you like, try a few out, see which ones, float your boat. You can determine how long you want them to take, right? And then click, this is important, click apply to all. That way all the slides will do the same thing. and they're going to advance on the mouse click, or if this is something you want to have happen automatically, you can actually set the rotation. So if you're doing an event and you want what we call a PowerPoint loop, you can say, hey, every 5 seconds I want the slide to change automatically. But for most of us, that will not be clicked. You want it to go on a mouse click and set your duration. So just to give you an example now, this is how my slide will open. It takes about 2 seconds to transition. I'm going to go to slide number 2. Boom, 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 right? There's our animations. I'm going to go to slide number 3, which kind of had our full wallpaper background. However, we redid that into a little bit of a different style. And that is it. Finish with my best quote ever. So that's in, literally about 20 minutes there. About 5 different ways you can set up slides. There's obviously a lot more options. You can get really creative. For those of you that are creative and artistic, that's fantastic. I want to encourage you to experiment, try new things, and as always, you're more than welcome to share with us anything that you have, anything you want us to review. We'd be happy to take a look and give you some feedback on any of that. So with that, I'm going to open it up to any questions. If you guys have questions, whether it's about PowerPoint or Presenter Box, I'm happy to take those. But I'm going to wrap up the recording now and stay in line for any questions you guys have. But thanks a lot for joining us this week, and we will see you next time.